looks live to me. Live on Facebook. That's good enough. Well, YouTube. I don't want to. I feel like I don't want to hurt YouTube's feelings. Are we on YouTube as well? Maybe. Okay. Let's get going here. As so, everybody. It is September 24th, 2020, and Star Trek Lower Decks, the first season, episode 8 is over. But we're just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader, joined with my brother Jeff Mader and co-host Jaemeel Robinson to talk to you tonight about this episode of Lower Decks as we continue to cover this season here in this podcast. So, as mentioned, if you were following along, we're streaming here live on Facebook, also on YouTube, and we're going to post the audio version later to all kinds of great feeds like Amazon Podcast and Spotify and different places that we're out there. So, first of all, Jaemeel, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I enjoyed this episode. We just came off our Big Brother podcast. Now we're here for this one, and we're breaking it down. Jeff's camera just went black. I don't know what that means, but Jeff, how do you...
Strong fiber? Strong fiber.
Jeff's getting his fiber. Oh, okay, he's back. Jeff, how did you feel about this episode tonight?
It was good. It was a lot of vulgar language, a lot more than they normally do. That was one of the notes.
A lot of bleeps.
Well, they can get away with it this episode because so many things are supposedly redacted, so that's why it kind of blends into everything else, and they kind of played with it too.
Yeah,
the Rami bleep lens.
Yeah.
I keep trying to track how many you can call them Easter eggs, you can call them references, whatever you want, but how many just little plugs they did. And this one maybe set a record. It was hard to keep up with how many times they were referencing, but in particular Next Gen episodes. I think this show is very much in the spirit of Next Generation. But I think there were some other things. Definitely original series, Gorns, and some different things that showed up. And we had
space seeds.
I don't want to, maybe another big headline is Q. John Delancey. He's he made more of us. I don't know if he had been in an earlier episode, maybe for a second, but he was in this episode for a few lines tonight. Mostly in flashbacks, but we get this sense that Q does interact with the crews of other starships, not just the Enterprise, and the Cerritos is one of them. But did that excite you guys?
No,
I felt that was like the weakest part of this episode.
Yeah, no.
And I could have done without it.
So you feel like that was jammed in a little bit?
Yeah.
I think that I'm kind of with you guys that Q, like his presence here, not that it's unwelcome or out of place per se, but it's that he's the first character we've really had from the television come over here into cartoon, voiced by the original actor John Delancey. But it's also that Q's had more comedic appearances on Next Gen and Voyager, and he's also had much more serious episodes. And typically when he's in those robes, those judges' robes, those are typically the more serious times. And so I don't know if I was loving that so much that he was like, I'm here to judge humanity and whatever. I did think it was funny when he was getting them to like the chess pieces versus the playing cards. And I thought some of that was great animation and was pretty funny in concept. But in some of just the delivery, it didn't work as well for me either.
You know what? If it was just that like flashback, I would have been fine with it. And maybe later down the road, they have like another episode with him, like more involved. But like constantly keeping going back to it, it just kind of like, really? And it just seemed lame. When people are like ignoring Q, that I don't really like that at all. I don't.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a miss in terms of how they used him as well. Jeff, do you have any other thoughts in terms of
I
how
agree.
Q
I agree. If they're going to have Q, they should have just done a whole Q episode. They could have done a really cool job with that. But it was more of Kurtwood
cameo.
Smith. It was more of a Kurtwood Smith episode he was doing, I think, the main guy doing
he was the Inquisitor, but it was actually just his birthday party or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Celebration party.
Yeah, so he was so Kurtwood Smith, who was in undiscovered country. This poster right here, playing the Federation president, but he was definitely channeling Christopher Plummer's character in General Chang very much.
Yeah.
Even though he's not playing a Klingon, he had like the eye patch. He was kind of doing it. You had the judge above, very much like the Klingon trial in that movie with Shatner and Kirk and McCoy and all them. And so that was definitely what they were playing off of. And there was definitely a misdirect. And I do appreciate the misdirect. I think the misdirect was really comedic. I think the way they flipped it around and it was actually a party, and the way they explained it and how it all tied in. I think that the episode was well crafted in that sense, and the concept was good. But I think that unfortunately Q was underutilized. And if I have another criticism here, it's that maybe too many references. I feel like that.
You know what? The references was more something I would like watch back and kind of like, oh, that's interesting, or oh, right. Like this is the type of series where I would like a DVD physical release always, and they have like a video picture in picture where it's like, here's a reference. We reference this here, reference this here, right? Kind of just detailing that in the commentary with a little bit of video. I'll tell you that what I felt was the problem with this is I think if Q was a part of the cast and he could only be seen by the lower deck people, and he was like, what are you going to do? Like he was like antagonizing them and like putting them on edge. I think that would have been even a better use if you're going to have him in that type of role. But having Q should never be the joke, right? Q can make a joke.
Well, I think
Q can
there
be
was
part of the joke, but he cannot be the joke itself.
Agreed. I think that there was the time where he lost his powers, and that's maybe Q at his most humble.
Mhm.
Or there was the episode where I don't know, Q was in Tapestry with Picard, and he was sort of giving him this whole other thing. And Q mostly brought great philosophical arguments and was a great foil for Picard, and was sort of one of the more interesting aspects of Next Generation. And so, I think he was like, I don't think they did this character any favors tonight, and I don't think bringing him in was necessary. I wish, but maybe if they bring him back for another episode after this and it's better, then maybe that's worth it. But this introduction was less than stellar. I think I understand why they did it, because this episode was going to be like, this is us reference flashbacks. This is going to be a whole bunch of first it's Boimler and Mariner giving their account to the Kurtwood Smith Inquisitor, and then Rutherford's next, and then Devanna. And so we get all this other stuff, tons and tons and tons of references and plugs to other stuff, but just kind of a sense of like all these different missions. It was almost like a clip show, but of stuff we've never seen. Them kind of giving an account of things they've been doing, and sort of what might not make it into its own story. It's
what I refer to as an Almost Got Him episode, which was an episode of Batman the Animated Series where all members of Batman's Rogue Gallery stated how they almost caught the Batman, and each piece reveals part of a story as to what actually happened with Batman. So in this case, they all have individual pieces of the puzzle of what actually happened, right? And as they all account their individual pieces, we get a grander sense of the greater story. But the whole point is, even with that whole account, we still don't really understand what's going on because the lower decks don't know.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it was I think it's definitely maybe one of their thesis statement episodes. Like, no, we never know what's going on, and we're just in space, but we're on a spaceship. And there's a lot of lines in here that I think that maybe they've intended for the trailer. I don't think a lot of these did make a lot of the show trailers early on, but I think Boimler's particularly speech is down at the end of the episode. Like, we don't know what's going on. We're just doing our best, and all that thing. But everyone has good intentions, but I thought this was a great growth episode for Boimler because he calls them out. He says, no, they're just kind of muddling their way through it. They're human or Bajorans or whatever, species, and that they make mistakes. They're just beings. And
well, they said it's Starfleet.
They're Starfleet. They're the best of the best. And which is it? Is it a bit of both? It's somewhere in the middle. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, because like you can't, just look at red shirts and all of the crazy stuff, like the expendable people who have died in Star Trek shows that clearly don't know what's going on. Not quite to the reputation of stormtroopers, but I feel like it is sort of like a little bit of that commentary. Like stormtroopers can't aim and they always miss, and I think that's this show bringing what is sort of sillier about Star Trek. But I don't like when they take it too far. I think Q was underused. I didn't think, and I think that the fact that this was something else and nobody knew, and we got some great stories or accounts from the characters, and there was kind of growth between the senior officers and these particular 4 lower decks characters, I thought was also positive. And yeah, go ahead.
You got finally some individual Divana.
Yeah, I was going to say
progression.
I think that this was her best episode for 10.
Right. Yeah, so we should probably go through all the different stories, but yeah, let's go to Tendi because you were saying that it was the strongest, and it's interesting because I wrote down here in my notes that when her story started, because I really enjoyed the Rutherford story, the Boimler and Mariner story was okay, but I definitely was feeling better after the Rutherford story, and then Devanna's kind of started slowly, and she was like, no, I can't tell you that, but then once she got into this like classified story and just it spoke more to her character because how she was telling it, what she was bleeping out, what she thought wouldn't be understood, and just that this happened to her, right? And that this is part of what she did was really interesting. Like it was fun. It was really funny. What did you guys like the most about it?
I liked the duality of the enjoying of just picking up the cat hair and then fish out of water turn into like epic badass martial artist. Like everyone more or less of the lower decks that we're supposed to be watching, all of them have their specialty. Rutherford is the tech genius. Not Bromler is like this,
Boimler is the straight man. He's
straight man, but yet at a certain level he is skilled, especially in the technical aspects of Starfleet, not necessarily of the machinery or equipment, right?
But in intent and in character, Boimler is strong. But he's also a rat, and he'll tell on you if he thinks something's going his way.
Right, and then we have Miss Mary Sue, but not really Mary Sue, right?
Mariner.
Yeah, Mariner, obviously. And it was good to finally see what Divana was good at, right? And
cleaning the chairs.
Not just cleaning the chairs, but being a badass in general.
Yeah, like they just gave her some good writing, and they had not spent enough time on her. And I thought Rutherford's was still better than hers.
Yes.
But at least she had
something. Yeah.
At least she had something good. The rest of the Boimler and Mariner, I think for once we took a chill pill on their characters, which was nice. They're on the show too much.
Well, okay. What did you think, Jeff, about their scene, their flashback where they were on the bridge and there was this whole misunderstanding with the map from the neutral zone and these aliens who were not happy about the gratitude but they were also, it was also because Rutherford had disrupted the red alert machinery, and so it was red alert everywhere on the ship, and so Mariner is saying, no, we don't want to get Rutherford fired, so we have to cover for him. But Boimler is always like, no, we can't do that, we have to always tell the truth, Starfleet's about the truth. And like basically Boimler's everything cliche about Starfleet and Star Trek a little bit, and Mariner's like the realistic, no, like in this situation you would actually want to do this, or you would actually cover for your friend, or you might you might be a little lazy in this situation or whatever. That's kind of, Boimler's, or he's like, no, this is exactly how it was always meant to be. And so this whole scene where it's Captain Freeman, Mariner's mother, says, what should we do? He's like, about this random alien problem thing? And she's like, yes, tell me what I want, or, whatever. Did you like that part of this sort of the flashbacks that we were getting as they were on being asked to testify?
Yeah, it was good. I thought the episode was strong. Like, I thought a lot of the flashbacks, there was a lot of references shoehorned in there. There was a lot of swearing. It was like trying to be edgy a little bit too much, I thought, but at the same time, I thought it was still good. Like I thought it was still pretty well written and pretty funny, and I thought I think Kurtwood Smith really shines in this episode. Like he's always funny, and like no matter what, like whatever his character was saying was to me
He's
delivered.
a good voice actor. He's a good voice actor.
Really good. Yeah, he was really strong. Of course, he played Red on that 70s show, and he's done a lot of great. He was in RoboCop, a great actor. Freaking RoboCop was like 30 years ago, 30 something years ago, and he was like not a young man in that, was he? Like, but
No, it was not.
He's going strong, and but of those three stories, so if you go with like those flashbacks, because you got the Boimler and Mariner, and then you got the Rutherford, and then you got the Devanna with Ransom and the whole Black Ops mission and whatever. And so which of those did you sort of enjoy the most? Which one of those do you think was the funniest or sort of just the most memorable?
Rutherford was the funniest.
Yeah, Rutherford was definitely the most well done one, I thought.
Yeah,
because it played off what pre-established concepts that have already been there. So we already know about his unit, right?
His implant.
Yeah, his implant. They established it pretty early, and they played it for comedic effect. And every time you thought that was the last bit, it just kept going. It didn't get excessive, right? They held off long enough with each scenario that it didn't become excessive. And that's what I was afraid of. Once you have something like that, you lean on it too many times, and then it starts losing its comedic effect. Same thing with the scanning with Devanna, right?
They're scanning. No, and then, but they went like 4 or 5 times. You think it's gonna be the last time?
But they did it enough where you didn't like, oh, this is too much. They really found the sweet spot. It was really good.
They probably tested it a few times. Like, how many times do we repeat it where it's the most funny? You know, how do we maximize that funny there? And they did pretty well. Yeah. Jeff, your take of those 3 stories? You said Rutherford. And then would you say that the Devanna story was stronger than the Boimler Mariner stuff?
Yeah, for me it was. I thought so. I thought the Boimler and Beckett, they're kind of. I'm glad that there was less time for them in this episode.
Who are they? Who are these two? Are they? Are they? I don't want to use a Seinfeld reference because I know that will annoy people. Yeah. Are they Jerry and Elaine to some extent? Are they? Who else would be a good? Even like a
from The Office.
Yeah, Sam, not Sam and Diane, but Sam and Kirstie Alley's character, who I can't remember now, but from Cheers or something like they have sort of like this, not romantic, but it is a dynamic sort of playing off that they're debating. I think what the premise of the show is, like I said, like where Boimler is this, like, no, this is the ideals of Starfleet on paper, and then Mariner is like, no, but real life doesn't work like that, and you got to be flexible, and I'm against the rules and whatever. And so somewhere in the middle, those two are supposed to find the right balance. That's what it's always supposed to be. That's sort of, I think, that why we keep seeing so much of these two together, because they want to drive that home. But I think that they don't need to force that so much, and that they've done in this first season so far. Like, I think that they need to let that happen more organically, and let these characters cross over. Because I thought it was good that these 4 were, they were in this situation where they were testifying and they were going to get thrown in the eels together, and so it was good for like the team of them, if you will.
Yeah, and they haven't been doing a lot of that, so it was nice to see the 4 of them having to be like a group and be a team for sure.
Right. And I agree with you, Jaemeel. I think there was a bit of a missed opportunity. If you're going to bring in John Delancey here and you're going to bring in Q, then why not, like, what if he took a special interest in these lower decks people, and that's sort of what the more interesting thing would be about them. And they can still do this. It's not like to say they've completely missed the opportunity, but it's the first time they've had Q in here. And like,
if they reference that he was blown off, and he's like, no one has ever blown me off before, and he decides to just terrorize them. Well, that could be interesting.
Remember when he was on Deep Space Nine, and then O'Brien goes up to him and he says, "Hey, remember me? I'm O'Brien from the Enterprise." He just looks at him like, weren't you one of the little people or whatever? And somebody, like some extra he never talked to or whatever. And I think that sets up a premise here that Q taking an interest in any of these characters would be sort of unlikely, because he tends to go for more exceptional human beings, or if you will, not that they're not exceptional, but they're not prominent people.
True.
They're lower decks people. They are more of the background characters. That's the whole thing. That's the whole show. So
That's why I think you're right. They kind of missed an opportunity to do that with Q. That would have been good. But like you said, they still have time, and maybe it was just kind of ease John Delancey into it, ease everybody into kind of playing with that toy, because he's not a. You gotta come ready with like what you want to do before you start using Q. I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we're going to see a different second season. I think that this was a big risk for them. This whole premise, what they've tried to do here, and I think that they were always going to say that, it was always on a ship that didn't matter, so its effect or its sort of impact long term will be minimal. If it's not well received, but it is well received. So I think and they're going to look at sort of what worked and what didn't, and what did the fans like. And I hope that they listen to podcasts like this, where the people are out there talking about what they're responding to in the show. And so we could still get those kinds of things if they're listening, which I hope they are, because I think that the show has a lot of premise. I think these characters have a lot of potential, to grow, to become more. I think we've seen a lot so far. I think that there's a lot to build off here. I think I'm legitimately starting to like them, right? Like I care even about Dr. Tiana, the vacation in this, and she's got to go to the party and shave her, whatever was bleeped out. But, like I thought that, Shax and I'm learning their names, and the more I learn their names, the more I'm going to start to.
Shax is still the best.
Yeah. Shax, okay, and is that why Rutherford's whole story with him like blanking out with his implant and waking up in different situations was Shax the best part of that?
Yeah, he was part of it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I don't know, those guys are funny. They're doing some funny stuff on the show, for sure. Whether or not it's every character, I just think the two main characters are on it too much, and they have to let the other characters breathe more.
Yeah. I can understand that. I agree.
Yeah, I think they got, but hey, you got Jack Quaid from The Boys on this show, Jeff. You got to give him a ton of time.
Yeah, and I get that. That's probably what it is. You're right. It's probably star power and stuff. But I don't know. Like the characters that make me laugh the most are like actually like Ransom and Shax and I like the Doctor.
What about Captain Freeman? Are you finding her funny?
Not really, but she is sometimes.
She's a little one note for me. Her whole comedic beat is, I always know what the hell I'm doing, or I'm always. She's just like, yeah, that's right, I am the best, or whatever, And it's funny a couple times, but I feel like that's fatiguing a little bit. So maybe they have to figure out because, and she's also got this whole dynamic being Mariner's mother, which we'll see. But yeah, and Boimler, we talked about. Devanna, we said it had some growth tonight. Rutherford, funny again. Andy Billups was the other. He comes in and out as played by what's his name, Paul Scheer, I believe. Yeah, Paul Scheer from the
How Did This Get Made?
Stuff. How Did This Get Made? And he was in all the Shax stuff with Rutherford in the background. Plus, he was one of the senior officers that was in the Beam of Joy or whatever it was. Yeah,
the beam of celebration.
The beam of celebration. Okay, let's talk about the whole misdirect and the whole ending because, he's like, no, it's a birthday party, and they're like, what?
Yeah, I don't know.
No, it was a celebration. Wasn't it a celebration?
Yeah,
afterwards was a birthday party.
Yeah, the only thing they don't really explain is why there was eels and why they could be in contempt and put into the eel tank.
That's cultural differences.
Cultural, yeah.
Just cultural differences that's just explained away with that. Yeah, and nobody from the Beam of Celebration could say, "Hey guys, it's just a party."
I want you to testify how great they are.
No, we have to respect other people's cultures. And maybe are they poking fun at that? That like if you're respecting people's cultures, you might have a misunderstanding.
Have to do some foolish stuff, yeah.
Or just like where does that end, and how long do you play along with that before you say, well, maybe not for me, but or maybe there is no limit to it.
Electric eels in a heated tank.
I think that's
Like,
the limit.
Yes.
If that's the cultural, if the culture is that you have to be involved, but against your will, you're pulled up in a beam and then you're dropped into a tank of basically electric eels or something, right?
Yes.
Then maybe I don't know. Okay, but he was like, "Well, who's that guy behind you?" The judge. He's like, "I don't even know that guy." He's
I'm setting up for a birthday party that's happening in 10 minutes.
yeah. And then they only had 22 minutes booked or whatever. That was funny, and
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed that. But then I guess what can you say? They did it, and then it was over. But they all got commendations. They all got medals at the end, even though they kind of like trashed them and said that they're a bunch of idiots who barely get through their jobs.
They didn't say they were idiots. They just said that, they don't, clarify what's going on. So, they're out of the loop.
What about to Mariner's point that that there was all this this talk about Rutherford and Shax and Andy Billups? They had to go get the Romulan warbird from Vulcans, because we were only getting glimpses into what Rutherford did with them, right? And it looked like it was a pretty wild mission. But yeah, why did that all happen? And then Mariner says, why wasn't that like an Enterprise, or Boimler I think says it? Why wasn't it an Enterprise mission? Why why did the Cerritos get put on this? Like she's like, whatever, it's not. Just explain it away or.
Well, they took the bird of prey from a museum
on Vulcan.
Yeah, wasn't it a museum?
I guess so. Like it was so hard to figure out, and then they stole this old school 23rd century bird of prey, which is I still think a great looking ship.
It does.
We talked about this on the Star Trek Picard podcast, where that ship showed up as well, and it was not as well received by Jody and Kevin. And I don't know, Jeff, if you were a fan of that design of that old school Romulan warbird with the bird painted on the bottom.
It's kind of cool, but it's very like 60s, like art house
flying saucer looking thing. But
it is definitely dated for sure.
Yeah, it's retro, but that's the whole thing. Is what I like about the original series is that for whatever reason, just like in Star Wars, that like it was the 70s in that time, or in that era. In that era of the 23rd century, the aesthetic was everything just was sort of retro 60s, had that sort of that 60s charm to it, and that's just the way it was during that time.
Sure.
And they grew out of it, just like this is very much the 80s. They're like, oh, I love the plush carpet and the pink and the
everything pink and cream,
and all that aesthetic is very 80s. Like when you look at Next Gen now, especially early Next Gen, you're like, this does not look like the future.
No, it doesn't.
But that's fine. That's all part of it.
They thought it did then.
Yeah. So what else? Okay. What was your favorite reference tonight?
I don't even remember.
Khan in his hairy chest.
Khan in his. How did he get that so muscular? It's like, I don't mind references if it makes sense for them to be used in the dialogue. Sometimes I think they force some of these in. Like, why would you guys talk about that? And they brought up Roga Danar of all people.
Yeah, that was the part I wanted to ask you about, Dave. What was that about?
The quote here, here's the dialogue. It says, Roga Danar, are you nuts? I said, who's the biggest all-time badass? Not who's a dude nobody's heard about. Everybody knows Roga Danar. No, they don't. He totally outsmarted Picard, and he has amazing hair. What about Khan, right? Khan was genetically engineered supervillain. Dude was a space seed. Okay, well, yeah, he was in the episode Space Seed, but that's a little, you're winking at me a little too much with that one. I do like the Roga Danar stuff, because Roga Danar is the guy, it's an episode that also has James Cromwell from First Contact, where like there are these soldiers from this war that ended, and they're sort of programmed and they have nowhere to go. It's kind of a metaphor for veterans from the Vietnam War, is what the commentary was on. Roga Danar was one such person who was able to escape the Enterprise and do everything. And he did have a pretty amazing hair. So I liked that. Like would they have never brought up Roga Danar since that episode way back?
Do you think that if you made a reference to Roga Danar to Rob Cesternino, he would end a conversation with you?
Definitely. He would say, we're really in the Delta Quadrant. We're in another galaxy here.
That happened.
Yeah, no, I brought up Devanani Rao, the great Devanani Rao.
Better. If they had made a Devanani Rao reference, I would have went over my head. And
if Rob wanted to do me a favor, he could have just said, "Hey, Cochrane, I know you're working on Lower Decks. There's this guy who thinks that Devin Daddy Rao is playing Big Brother. I think you should talk to.
I did call Cochran up. He's like, this guy, Devin Daddy Raw. Can you believe it?
Can you believe he's talking to me about Devin Daddy Rao? He thinks he's Tyler
Yeah.
in the Big Brother house. But I'm here. Call me, Cochran, if you need somebody to just help you out. I'm like, you should totally. I would have told you to reference Roga Danar, not diplomatic immunity. But
diplomatic immunity just been revoked.
Yeah, sometimes especially when they give some of these references to Mariner, they feel wrong somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but her I liked them going back and forth on Roga Danar, but her talking about Khan and just this line, it was genetically engineered supervillain, dude was a spacey. Like what? I guess it's partly just how she talks. That character.
She talks like she's a fan of Star Trek. Like almost.
Right.
But to be fair, she would be a fan of something like that.
Yeah.
Like Kirk, like punching people, and Khan, being a badass and stuff. That stuff interests her, right? Like, she's not going to be thinking about Darmok and. That stuff like that doesn't interest her. That's more of a Bromler stuff.
One of her other references that I didn't like tonight that they gave to her was like, oh, well, Earth's dumb because all they do there is make wine and eat at soul food restaurants. You like that line?
The only time they ever show friggin' Earth is they're either in San Francisco or they're at Cisco's restaurant or they're at Picard's
winery.
Or they're in Paris.
And Paris, blowing up some rocks on a...
Paris is like where the Federation President's office is, so they've been there. Yeah, they're always in San Francisco, or they did go to New Orleans.
I thought it was a perfect reference.
It made a lot of sense.
But she's confirming that that's all there is the people making wine and going to soul food restaurants. And...
it's about food on Earth. It's all about food.
Whatever. Because Voyager was in the Delta Quadrant. They never went to Earth. Except it was in the past. They would go there in the past, and they would wear 90s stuff.
Yeah, that's the most ridiculous stuff. It's like Voyager. It's like you're all the way in the Delta Quadrant. We're gonna somehow figure out a way to get you back to Earth.
They're gonna do a time travel episode.
They went to Earth a few times, right? In Voyager.
It's ridiculous.
It was like
Lord X is gonna do a time travel episode about 2020.
Right. Would you like to see these Lower Decks characters cross over with other shows like Voyager or the characters from those shows?
Oh, maybe, yeah, but
no,
I don't need it.
I need like when I'm talking about crossover, I'm like Lieutenant Barclay, like someone from the USS Valiant, Red Squad, Harry Kim 1, like some random people like that. I do not want them to directly involve themselves in any of the main characters. I don't need to see that again.
Well, tonight when they said, I don't know how to Vulcan nerve pinch people better than them, because just tell that to Spock and Spock.
Man, that was
It's just the way Shax delivers that line. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Just tell that to Spock and Spock.
Such a good character.
Yeah, like I don't know who I want to come here. Like bring in Roga Danar, bring back that actor.
They have to. His phone is blowing up. It's like, oh my gosh, we're back.
Jeff McCarthy. He was also in Voyager. The guy who played Roga Danar. You may remember him as the original chief medical officer of the USS Voyager before the Caretaker's Array. Yeah. Killed a whole bunch of the bridge officers, and that opened the door for the EMH, the Dr. Robert Picardo's character. But he was like that chief medical officer that no one liked, that especially Tom Paris didn't like. He was very prejudiced against Tom Paris for being a
scoundrel.
A scoundrel.
I think it was one.
Yeah, his hair was way better as Roga Danar than it was as that chief medical officer. Missed opportunity. You're like, let's bring back that guy.
Lakers just won, Jaemeel.
I don't know what you're talking about. Lower Decks, Dave. Lower Decks.
Yeah, basketball, guys. Oh, okay. Lower Decks, yeah. So 2 episodes to go. I thought this one was also good. I think we should rate it. I think we've talked about.
And I
all
have
the
one
bases
other
there.
question for you after we rate it. I would like to. I would like to hear your thoughts.
Let's bring that up. All right. So this is called Veritas.
Yes.
I will give this. I'll give this like about an 8. I think it's good, but not like I wouldn't put it in the great category. Jeff,
I'll give it 7.5.
and Neil.
And I'll give it a 7.2. Once
Okay,
again,
so-
the Q stuff kind of just killed it for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe I'm a little too high. Maybe I went a little too high with this 8, but I felt like it deserved an 8.
You liked
Um,
it, so it's an 8.
I liked it. I liked last week a lot more, and how that played out. So this was better than it had been in some of the other middle weeks. So that average at a 7.6 between the three of us, which and right now we're at an average of 7.1 for the season. So and the series overall. So this was a little bit better for all of us. And now that we've had 8 ratings, I am definitely the most generous rater, Jeff the most harsh rater, and Jaemeel in the middle. So he's the balance.
On the balance.
You bring balance to the force, Jaemeel.
We do have a comment who.
Oh, can I show this now? I wonder. Yes, we can. Hello. We appreciate the
Patience.
the patronage.
Crossover.
Mike, did you see Lower Decks on CBS All Access? No.
Even if he didn't,
we appreciate you coming by here.
Yeah, we own Jaemeel Robinson Services over here.
he's licensed.
Yeah, we have him under contract.
Cease and desist.
I have not appeared on Jim's BBQ podcast in many episodes.
I was only there that one time you and I went at it for a spot to be on the 4-color demons, and I lost to you. You won the spot, so I was.
And I barely played for that team.
Yeah, I lost a question I never should have or something, and
David, the hard soul guy, the Wally's Warriors.
I was a Wally's Warriors, remember? Yeah, but it was all right.
And was it the episode for talking with our mouseful aired this week.
I haven't listened to that yet.
It dropped on I think Tuesday.
Okay, so I will have to go check that out. Michael hadn't plugged that out since it had been recorded. So
yes, I made sure to give credit where credit's due to the Meta Bros and their great job they've done.
Well, hey, you're a big part of that, Jaemeel. So don't forget any of that. No, you're we really love doing this with you.
It's an empire.
It's an empire. So just gonna bring in the stuff.
Okay, my question. Question.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
My question is: do you believe the 10th episode will end on a cliffhanger?
Yes.
I think very high likely. I think it's going to be the joke is going to be what the cliffhanger is, right? Because
fire.
There's no way they can. They want to make fun of as much as about next gen era stuff as they possibly can, and I think it's certain that they're going to end with a cliffhanger of some kind. But it will probably not be. It might be a dramatic cliffhanger, but I think it's more likely to be sort of a comedic cliffhanger. I don't know if we'll get a best of both worlds or if we'll get more like a Time's Arrow. And oh no, Data's in San Francisco, I guess, and his head was found in a cave.
I think like the Time's Arrow.
I think it's gonna be I think it's probably if they're gonna.
Is it Mariner going to the future and seeing the statue of Bromler, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" Like it's the most important man in history.
O'Brien.
Chief O'Brien.
Sorry, second most important man in history. Futurama. It's like,
Maybe like or something they have to stop, or there's a lot of possibilities. But yeah, like okay, like not just of the Next Generation, but also of Deep Space Nine and Voyager, who all had cliffhangers. Now I'd say most of Deep Space Nines were good. So
three episode Bajorna.
yeah, but they're more likely. They're more likely to make fun of that to open up their second season. No, we're doing a 3-part Bajoran start.
What's his name? Kai Wynn comes back.
That'd be great. I would be fine if Kai Wynn showed up.
Bless you, child.
Bless the child. Speaking of which, over on Star Trek Radio Theater this Saturday night, we're going to be doing an episode of Deep Space Nine called The Reckoning, where we're going to be reenacting this episode. Kevin Millard playing Captain Sisko. I'll be playing Major Kieran Reese and the Prophets, as Tom Mott Tyrell, one of our newest cast members, will be playing Jake Sisko and Costa Mojan from the Pod Race, as well as Worf. Jeff's going to be playing Kai Wynn.
Yes,
Yes, child. He's also doing the computer for a couple of lines, and Jane, my wife, is going to be playing Constable Odo and Bashir. Which I reminded Jane today that that Odo and Kira are in their romance by this, I believe, at this point, and so I think that I was like, oh, now we get to be romantic with one another, Jane, with our characters, although we're gender reversed. And then with Ashley playing our narrator, helping to tell the story, as well as two members of the Bajoran clergy in Ranjin Coral and some other named Ranjin. Ranjin's like not quite a Vedic, if you know what that is. And then Jessica Chan will be playing Lieutenant Commander Jedsu Dax, as well as Quark. Michael Chan away this week. So check that out over on Live Long and Podcast, as well as all of our other Star Trek podcasts throughout the week. Tuesday nights, Deep Space Nine, Wednesday's original series. And here we do Thursday nights, Lower Decks. And just to plug also from our other channel, which is called Trivial Debates, this Sunday afternoon, check it out. Ashley and I is hosting a battle where we're going to be arguing about movies, sports, TV, history, and more. We got the first ever teams. We got Jody and Kevin versus Chris and Jaemeel versus myself and Jeff. So that's going to be a lot of fun, we think, or it's going to be a disaster. Either way, you should definitely tune in and check that out. I think that there's a lot to see and hear there. I'm just wondering, can Chris and Jaemeel get on the same page?
We're going to be on the winning page.
The winning page. Yeah.
We got this.
We also got to watch out for Jody and Kevin. I think that those two are going. We'll see. We'll see if their energy together is as a united front is.
Kevin saying something for 5 seconds, and then Jody's gonna try to win.
He's gonna riff off that for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Jody can't browbeat me like he browbeats you, Dave.
That's what it's gonna be.
No,
I know what's coming out of the Jody Kevin team. The Jaemeel Chris team, I don't know if it's a left, if it's a right, if it's an uppercut. I'm not sure what's coming.
Crane kick.
Great.
So yeah, that's all exciting. Those are all of our shows. Also, we're going to be doing Lower Decks is going to be wrapping up, relatively soon. We've got 2 more episodes before the season ends, and then Star Trek Discovery is going to be kicking up pretty soon. A couple more weeks.
3 more weeks.
October.
3 more weeks.
3 more weeks. It's going to be kicking up. So I'm going to be over there talking about that, or it's going to be here on Live Long and Podcast. But I think largely a different panel.
We also need to explain that there possibly will be a delay in the Lower Decks episode because of the extended Big Brother episode next week.
Oh yeah, we have a 2-hour Big Brother episode next week to deal with triple eviction, so could be a crazy night for us. If there's somehow we could do Lower Decks before that, it would almost be better. But yeah,
we can technically not watch the CTV feed.
No, we would have to illegally download. Oh no, what am I saying? I would never do such a thing, but maybe that's
our American friends will help us watch it.
Maybe that's a solution. I'm a subscriber, so whether I watch it at whatever time, but so just so that we can get through that next Thursday, because that's going to be a loaded one. So yeah, so thanks to everybody who's watching, commenting. Make sure to subscribe and let us know what you think. And we hope to hear from you out there. Anyway, on Dave Mader, on behalf of Jeff Mader and Jaemeel Robinson, you guys have a great night and live long and podcast. And don't forget the